The morning is September 11th, 2011. 5:50 or 5:45 a.m. Mohammed Atta, Abdul Aziz Omari, two of the intended hijackers passed through security at the Portland Airport International Airport or Jetport in Maine. They board and then they board a commuter flight to Boston Logan International Airport, and then they board American Flight Airlines 11. 9:59 a.m. Flight 11 takes off from Boston, headed for Los Angeles, California, where there are 76 passengers, 11 crew members, and 5 hijackers on board. 8:15 a.m. United Airlines Flight 175 take off from Boston, also headed for Los Angeles, where there are 51 passengers, 9 crew members, and 5 hijackers on board. At 8:19 a.m., a flight attendant on Flight 11, Betty Ann Ong, alerts ground personnel that a hijacking is underway and the cockpit is unreachable. 8:20 a.m. American Airlines Flight 77 takes off from Dulles outside of Washington, D.C., headed for Los Angeles, where there are 53 passengers, 6 crew members, and 5 hijackers on board. At 8:24 a.m., Mohammed Atta, a hijacker on Flight 11, unintentionally alerts air controllers in Boston to the attack. He meant to press the button that allowed him to talk to the passengers on this flight. At 8:37 a.m., after hearing the broadcast from Atta on Flight 11, Boston Air Traffic Control alerts the U.S. Air Force's Northeast Defense Sector, who then mobilized an Air National Guard to follow the plane. At 8:42 a.m., United Flight 93 takes off from Newark, New Jersey after delay due to routine traffic and was headed for San Francisco, California. There are 33 passengers, 70 crew, or 7 crew members, and 4 hijackers on board. At 8:46, Flight 11 crashes in the World Trade Center's North Tower. All passengers on board are instantly killed, and employees of the WTC are trapped above the 91st floor. 9:03 a.m. Flight 175 crashes into the WTC South Tower. All passengers on board are killed instantly, and so are an unknown number of people in the tower. 9:05, President George Bush, in an elementary school classroom in Florida, is informed about the hit on the school's second tower. Was informed of the hit on the second tower, not the school. His chief of staff, Andrew Card, whispers the chilling news to the president's ear. Bush later wrote about his response. I made the decision not to jump up immediately and leave the classroom. I did not want to rattle the kids. I wanted to project a sense of calm. I had been in a crisis enough to know the first thing a leader has to do is project a sense of calm. Okay. So, and there's more. 9:28 a.m. Hijackers on Flight 93 attack. 9:37. Flight 77. There's a lot of sevens. Crashes into the Pentagon along with passengers aboard, instantly killed, and so are 125 civilian and military personnel in the building. 9:45 U.S. airspace is shut down under the Operation Yellow Ribbon. All civilian aircrafts are ordered to land at the nearest airport. 9:55 Air Force One with President George Bush aboard takes off for Florida. 9:57 a.m. Passengers aboard Flight 93 begin to run up toward the cockpit. Jara, the pilot, begins to roll the plane back and forth to attempt to destabilize the revolt. At 9:59, the South Tower of the World Trade Center collapses. And we know what goes on from there. So, my initial, research on this was because of controlled demolitions, and I believe in conspiracy theories, and that's what this conspiracy theory is the controlled demolition theory. And as much as there's like a lot of video footage that shows like bright lights flashing and stuff that kind of invoke the idea of a controlled demolition, it kind of changed my mind.
Oh.
Like reading about it.
Researching it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know what you mean, because one of the most recent episodes I did also changed my mind a bit about the topic itself. So
Yeah.
sometimes that helps. Like, that's why we say, like, not to believe what you hear, like, and do your own research, because you shouldn't just trust that everything is, don't eat what's handed to you all the time. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
so.
Right. So I have some conspiracy theory. Goodness, I can't talk today. Some conspiracy theorists contend that the collapse of the World Trade Center was caused not solely by the airline crash damage that occurred as part of September 11th attacks and resulting in fire damage, but also by explosives installed in the building in advance. Controlled demolition theories make up the majority of 9/11 conspiracy theories. Early advocates such as physicist Stephen E. Jones, architect Richard Gage, and software engineer Jim Hoffman and theologian David Ray Griffin proposed that the aircraft impacts and resulting fires themselves alone could not have weakened the building sufficiently enough to initiate a catastrophic collapse, and that the buildings would have neither collapsed completely, nor at the speeds they did without additional energy involved to weaken their structures. The National Institute of Standards and Technology and the magazine Popular Mechanics examined and rejected these theories. Specialists in structural mechanics and structural engineering accept the model of the fire induced and gravity driven collapse of the World Trade Center buildings, an explanation that does not involve the use of explosives. NIST found no corroborating evidence for alternative hypothesis, suggesting that the World Trade Centers were brought down by controlled demolition using explosives planted prior to September 11, 2001. Professors Denik Bazant of Northwestern University, Tom Eager of Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and James Kintier of the University of Maryland have also dismissed the controlled demolition conspiracy theories. In 2006, Jones suggested that thermite or super thermite may have been used by government insiders with access, such as materials and the buildings themselves, to demolish the buildings. In April 2009, Jones, Daniels H. Harrett, and 7 other authors published a paper on the Open Chemical Physics Journal, causing the editor of Professor Marie-Paul Pellini to resign as she accused the publisher of printing it without her knowledge. The article was titled Active Thermitic Material Discovered in Dust from the 9/11 World Trade Center Catastrophe, and stated that they had found evidence of nanothermite in samples of dust that was produced during the collapse of the World Trade Center. NIST responded that there was no clear chain of custody to prove that the 4 samples of dust came from the WTC site. Jones invited NIST to conduct its own studies using its own chain of custody dust, but NIST did not investigate. Okay, so in a nutshell, all these doctors and professors and stuff have um, like researched this and done tests, and they haven't found any actual evidence of a controlled demolition.
Right. They haven't found any explosives or any types of evidence of explosives.
Right. Now, like the dust, um, is like was like a what's the word I want? It was kind of like a precursor to a possible demolition,
Okay.
but it wasn't enough and um, to prove it.
Okay.
Now, let's see here. By the way, I am Kyle,
And I'm Isella,
and
and
we're
we're
your
your
hosts.
hosts. Sorry, guys. We already did this once.
Yeah.
We forgot to hit record. So things are a little out of order, but
We're just going with the flow here today. My computer stopped. Okay. Now, there are multiple other. Hold on, let me turn this back on. There are multiple other conspiracy theories, such as, okay, so the controlled demolition theory we already talked about claim
mm-hmm.
the Twin Towers and especially the World Trade Center Building 7 were brought down by explosives. Why people believe it? The building fell straight down. Similarly to demolitions, the WTC 7 wasn't hit by a plane but still collapsed, and some witnesses report hearing explosives.
Right. And it makes some sense, like if they had actually had explosives already set up for emergency purposes or something like that. Like if the building's going to come down, we want it to come down in a way that's not going to destroy anything else around it or make it super, you know, inconvenient, that they would control the collapse of it even though it had been hit.
Right,
And if they had that in place, why wouldn't they admit to it? Because that just shows, that they were planning in advance of something maybe possibly happening.
right,
Um, but if they did that, they'd be almost admitting to the fact that they knew the attacks were going to happen,
right.
which if you've read or seen The Looming Tower, they have the Looming Tower is a book that came out in 2006 and it came out on Hulu as a TV series. And what The Looming Tower suggests is that because the CIA and the FBI are constantly fighting against each other, they couldn't figure out who was going to get credit for breaking it, so it never got broke. And they knew it was going to happen, that the attacks were going to happen. But instead of working to stop it, they were working to see who would get to tell the president, basically, who would get the credit.
Of course.
And it was a work of nonfiction. So parts of that are very true.
Yeah. Well, what investigations found, we talked about NIST, concluded collapses were caused by fire and structural damage, not explosives. No verified evidence of demolition materials were found. WTC 7 collapsed due to prolonged fires weakened the key structural column. Now, we have another conspiracy theory, which is it was an inside job or a government plot. Claims the U.S. either planted or allowed the attacks. Why people believe it? Intelligence warnings before 9/11, slow military response, and motive and theories justify wars in the Middle East. So there's that.
Right. And with everything currently going on, it really does make you wonder, like, did we need a reason to get everyone on board with going to war? Because just now, nobody wants to be in war, but we're there.
Yeah, exactly.
And the support is not there. But back in 2001, everyone was hurting from this attack, and they were able to easily get Americans on board with going to war, get Americans on board with some sort of justice for what happened.
Right.
So it's very possible that um, that's something that they could have been using to try and get everyone on board with going to war
Right.
for other reasons.
Well, the evidence shows that the 9/11 Commission was found intelligence failures that lack coordination, not a conspiracy. No credible evidence has surfaced showing government orchestration, and multiple independent investigations agree that on Al Qaeda being responsible.
Yeah.
Now, number three is jet fuel can melt steel beams. Fires from planes weren't hot enough to collapse steel structures. The reality is steel doesn't need to melt to fail. It loses strength at high temperatures. Burning jet fuel and office materials reached temperatures sufficient to weaken the structure, and the structural weakening led to progressive collapse. So, I reading all this and kind of getting into each theory or whatever and learning kind of what what dismantles the theory
Yeah.
has made me. I kind of believe that it was just an attack.
Yeah. I do believe it was an attack. I also 100% agree that it was the CIA and FBI not communicating with each other. That they did have intelligence on it, which, I mean, that's been proven already. They had prior knowledge that it was going to happen. They did not act on this prior knowledge because they couldn't cooperate with each other because, it was a measuring contest.
Very much so. So, do you remember how you felt that morning?
I remember going to school, and it was my first year of high school. So, um, that's jarring enough for most people. And going into school that day, we had convocation in the morning. And that's where we would all meet kind of and do like a morning meeting sort of thing, pray and get ready for, was it a weekly thing or okay, get ready for the week. So it must have been on Monday. Yeah. And we would get ready for the week. So while we're sitting in convocation, they tell us that the first plane has hit and to pray for all the people. We thought it was an accident, just as everybody across the United States thought the very first plane hitting was an accident. Um, we prayed and then we were dismissed. And as we returned to our classrooms, we got news about the second plane. And that's when we, as well as everybody else, had suspected that it was attack. We were under attack. That
Mm-hmm.
the U.S. was under attack, and classes did not happen. We still switched classes, for the period from room to room. I remember sitting in Spanish class and looking at the TV. They had TVs in the corner of the classroom. It was like an old tube TV kind of mounted up in the corner. And I remember seeing people jump from the towers. I was 14 years old.
That's sad.
And watching people decide that dying on their own terms was better than anything that the building and the collapse and the suffocation of fire could offer them.
That's really sad. Um, because you're a couple years older than me, you remember it more vividly. I was in 6th grade.
Okay.
And we were on a field trip to Souter Village.
Okay.
Which is, what Souter Village is, right?
Yeah, I do. Actually, I get to go on my fourth grader is going to Sauter Village, and I get to go on the field trip in May.
Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, I was there.
Okay.
And then we were just getting off the bus, and then women were crying everywhere.
Oh.
Because one woman, I believe she had like a brother-in-law or a brother or family that was in New York.
Okay.
That worked at the Trade Center.
Oh, okay.
And I remember her being not hysterical, but like her being very, very emotional and worrying about her loved ones. And then we were told that the World Trade Centers had been attacked, and we went on with the day.
Yeah.
But like it was like a weird feeling in the air. Because
that is, I mean, yeah. I mean, well, we went on with the day as well, except they told us that our buses wouldn't be picking us up and that parents had to come get us from school. But yeah, that's crazy. You guys were on a field trip.
Yeah. And
field trip you'll never forget.
Right. It was scary.
Yeah.
But that's all I have for the controlled demolition
conspiracy theory.
conspiracy theory. Because there's other ones, but the controlled demolition one was just the one that I thought.
It's definitely the most popular. It's one that I hear all the time. People who aren't even into conspiracy theories really like subscribe to that one.
Yeah.
But no, unfortunately, since we've started researching all these conspiracy theories, it comes down to just a measuring contest between men and not cooperating with each other. I mean, you hear the same thing happening in smaller police stations when they have like a murder or something in their small town and they don't want to pass the information along. But if we could just get law enforcement to cooperate with each other for the common good.
If we could get people to cooperate with each other at all.
Well, that's what my next episode's kind of about. um but no, I don't know. It being, I don't know, just a really big event in our formative years.
Yeah, it's kind of molded like everyone I know.
Yeah, the nation has not been the same since.
No. And I think that what's really crazy is it's almost like our country has forgotten how devastating that was for us,
Yeah.
and us like going over to other countries and uh, you know
Yes.
starting war. Like, hello, like,
Yeah.
we've been through this. Why are we putting other people through this?
100%. And I think that a lot of people are not supporting those decisions anyway, as far as I know. A lot of people, and I know people on both sides, but yeah, most of us don't support the war or acts of war. View a lot of our most recent decisions as terrorism, um, based off of our own experience of what terrorism is, because that's what happened that day.
Yeah. So,
Sorry for such a somber episode, guys.
yeah, right. Um, that's that's it for me.
Okay. I don't really have anything to add on that one. It just makes me angry.
Yeah, same.
um, I think it should. It should cause us all to think about what we can do to make things better.
And to work together
Yeah.
and like be united in at all fronts whenever something like like a country is supposed to come together when bad things happen.
Yeah.
And like right now,
We did then.
we did then, why can't we do it now?
Yeah. The United States of September 12th, 2001 was one that was united. Flags were flown. There was pride in our country. There was unity. People cried together, held each other, and we're not there anymore.
No. It's sad. And I don't want it to take another tragedy to bring us back there.
Oh, definitely not. 100%.
So, well, join us next week.
We post every Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Remember, trust no one.
Question everything. And if you have any stories you want to send us to read on the podcast, you can reach us at suspectionpod@outlook.com. Again, if you want to send us your stories, we love to read them. Send them to suspectionpod@outlook.com, and we have an Instagram.
Our Instagram is at suspectionpod, and you can find links in the bio for our Amazon Music, YouTube, and Spotify. You're not locked in just to one, especially if your friends don't have a Spotify. You can always send them the link for YouTube. It's free.
It is. All right. Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.